You're listening to the Bear Down Chicago podcast with Logan Bradley, Ryan Dangle, Patrick Sheldon, Brendan Shagrew, and Jack Wright. The Bear Down Chicago podcast. Yeah, we're that Bears podcast.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into another edition, a special Monday edition of the Bear Down Chicago podcast. My name is Brendan Shagrew. I am hosting tonight. Ryan Dangle is off, so let's just see what happens and see how much we can keep this train on the tracks because it's probably going to go off at some point. But if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Brendan Shagrew. That's SUGRUE. Make sure you check out my work at thebearswire.com. Definitely putting out a lot of stuff over the last couple days, especially with the Bears playing last night, because we have a very sad game to recap, and we can't do it without the rest of the crew. So I'm going to bring in Jack Wright. You can follow him at BearDownJack. And then we also have Patrick Papa Sheldon at P_Shells. Guys, before we get into the game, we were waiting all day for Sunday night before we got that ass kicking. But how did you spend your Sundays without having the Bears ruin the actual day for you?
I'm a big fan of Sundays in general because you can control the pace of your life. I mean, Shells, maybe just don't listen for a little while because this will be down the road for you. But I wake up, go for a walk, grab some coffee, make sure all my lineups are set, listen to Sirius XM and the Fantasy Sports Network, see who's in and out, set my lineups, make some wagers. And again, I think it's kind of fun to watch games, from noon on that you're not as invested in because you can just, it's the sports equinox, boys. Like it is like the highlight.
True.
There are despite the Bears' woes, it's pretty freaking awesome right now to be a sports fan in general. So I just really leaned into sportsing in every way.
What about you, Sheldon? Oh, you're muted. My God. It's amateur hour on a Monday.
Dangle's not here to keep me honest. He had to go. Full disclosure, there's apparently a gathering at Howells Hall to keep Velus Jones in the roster, and Ryan Dangle is coordinating it or something. So he's unavailable tonight, and he's not here to keep me honest and let me know that I'm on mute.
Hold on, Sheldon.
Jack,
before you start,
Heidi, hello,
look who's
Heidi.
here. Look who's here. Awesome. Heidi Zimmerman, cousin Heidi. I can't believe it. I'm so happy. We're all so happy. So for people who don't know, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No.
For people who don't know, Heidi we've shouted her out a million times. She's one of the best Bears fans, and she came up to Chicago last weekend to watch the Bears and Raiders, and she returned to her home of Acapulco. Within a day or so, it was just devastated by Hurricane Otis. I'm sure everybody has seen the footage or heard about it. It was completely something that was unprepared for. The forecasters had no idea. And Heidi just, felt the worst of it. The whole city was just, destroyed. And we were so worried. We were so worried about you, Heidi, like for real talk. We hadn't heard from her on social media. Thankfully, she's okay. She's getting through it. I know she relocated to another city, but we're just so happy you're here, and we're so happy that you're doing the best you can, and we're just thankful that you're safe and and healthy through all this.
Several days ago, I sent her a message on Twitter, and just heard back today, so it was quite a relief to know that she's doing okay. So, Heidi, it's really good to see you on the show tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a dicey couple of days for all of us. I think the last post that I remember of hers before, the hurricane was her posting a video of the power going out in Acapulco. And then we didn't hear from her for a couple of days. And, everybody was just praying for the best. So we're obviously thrilled that you're okay. Wishing nothing but the best and hope everybody's, getting back to a little bit of normalcy today. But we are absolutely thrilled to have you on, and so glad you're here, Heidi.
Yeah, definitely. So, Shells, I'm sorry. You please continue with your.
No, I was just marveling at all this free time Jack has on Sundays. I think I would have gotten to wake up, and then my day would have just been thrown into chaos. But no, I spent the whole weekend actually at the ballpark, as I normally do. My oldest had a tournament. They dominated on Saturday. They won a combined 33-1 through 2 no-hitters. And rolled into Sunday, won the first 2 games, and then unfortunately came up a little bit short in the championship game. But they played 3 games on Sunday, and so I was at the ballpark all day. I got home and caught a little bit of the game. I think I turned it off about midway through the third quarter. I think I texted you guys. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And full disclosure. But that's how I spent my Sunday and how I'll spend my next 2 weekends. We've got tournaments coming up the next 2 weekends. So
it's probably, yeah. No, that's awesome though. Yeah, mine was just watching football. I loved I was with some friends. There was a small gathering and we were just flipping through all the games and it was so fun. Like the witching hour, my buddies got the Sunday tickets. So we were just like, oh, let's go to that game. We got to see the end of this game, the end of that game. And it was, I pointed out, I'm like, this is so much fun to just watch football, kick back, not worry about it. And then just prepare for the impending doom that was coming on Sunday night instead of just having to deal with it at noon. So at least I had that going for me, which is nice.
Dangle in the comments. What are you doing? Dangle, get back to the mission at hand and keeping Velus Jones in this roster. You don't need to be engaging with us tonight. Go do what you got to do, buddy. I know how much it means to you.
He's just checking in, he knows how much Velus means to Jack as well. So we gotta, he's got to keep tabs on us. I get it. All right. We've spent too long not talking about this game. Before we get our quick thoughts though, we do have a little word from some partners. So Jack, if you want to take it away.
Yeah. So we want to make sure that we give our shout outs, especially to Sheridan's Barbershop. We know that Sheridan's is the best place for you to get a haircut, hands down. And we talk about it all the time, but we want to make sure that you know all the deets so that you can get yourself to Sheridan's and get yourself that haircut without a doubt. And you can probably tell right now that I had the read up, and now the read's not showing up. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to talk first about the new opening. We've got a new place that you can get your haircut, and that's at Hensel's Barbershop. That's in downtown Naperville. Now, Hensel's has been there since 1966, and there are 6 barbers there. They're open Tuesday through Saturday. And you can walk in if you want to walk in, or you can make an appointment. So if you want to book your appointment, you can go to henselsbarbershop.com. And the Hensels part of that is spelled HENCZELS, henselsbarbershop.com. And you can use the slogan, where traditional meets modern. You can tell them that the Bear Down Chicago podcast sent you. Got a photo from Will this past week, and we had a customer go in and say, hey, the Bear Down Chicago podcast sent me, got his haircut. So thanks to the listeners and thanks to all of you who are taking our advice and going and listening to us about going to get your haircuts, because Sheridan's Barbershop and Hensel's Barbershop is where traditional meets modern.
We lost 3 viewers for that music. Sheldon, that was our surprise. We added in Jack's like, I want to have some music with the ad reads. I'm like, let's do it.
Yeah, I think everybody was dropping, going, do I have a tab open that I shouldn't right now? Let me go. Or somebody.
We were all thinking it.
I mean, what are you talking about? I thought that was the perfect music for that situation.
I think so too. Yeah.
All
right. Well, look, this is what happens when I get to host. There's no rules. All right.
Nope.
We just go with the flow. But look, we spent too much time, just messing around. We got to talk about the Bears. They lose 30-13 against Los Angeles Chargers. Another Sunday night drubbing. I found out it's been 5 years since the Bears have won a Sunday night football game. They are 0-8, I believe. So whenever Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth come on your screen, run, because it's bad news. Look, this was just drubbing. This was a team that was just completely outcoached, unprepared, again, coming off a win. It's almost like they pat themselves on the back too much after they do something good, and then they go play another game, especially against like a real team with real players, and then just get destroyed on every single front. So I don't know what you guys expected. I expected like a little bit closer game. I did have the Chargers winning, but from the get-go, like the Chargers had their offense was perfectly they game planned perfectly for what the Bears defense offered. Just all those dinks and dunks, beating the cover 2 zone, easily getting past tacklers. They didn't need to run the ball. They could just do those screens and quick slants, and they were able to easily move the ball down the field. So those are just my quick thoughts. Let's go Jack and Shells for what you guys thought, just overall thoughts of the game.
Yeah, I was with you. I thought that there was a chance that it would be close, or just an outside, wild hair of a prediction that the Bears, might be able to pull it off. And if I had been thinking, I wouldn't have thought that, probably, because I think ultimately what you have is, a professional organization against a team that's just not very good. Like I've said in the past, that if the goal is to be incredibly inconsistent, to have some highs and low lows, then the Bears have achieved that. I guess like a lot of folks, I was concerned that the Chargers would be more difficult for Bagent, because they would disguise coverages, they would mask and they would shift, and it would be more difficult for Bagent to be able to read the field. But I think something you said, Brendan, makes a ton of sense. It looked as though their game plan was really, we just need to be able to handle what Flus's defense throws at us. And they did. And they could basically just play their basic defensive packages, because our offense isn't very good. You don't ever know which Luke Getsy you're going to get. And it was bad Luke Getsy this week, good Luke Getsy last week. No identity, no rhythm on the offense. And so, yeah, I mean, it was disappointing, obviously. But I think, like last week, I was going to say to Shells and Ryan, I'm like, hey, guys, come on over here. I saved you a seat in my section. It's like, how they have like a family section where you can't have beers. But like in my section, there's no high highs and there's no low lows. We're just going to ride this thing out, man. We're just going to watch it and we're going to ride it out, because what else can we do? So I got 2 seats. I got 2 seats for you guys.
Sounds like there's a lot of weed in that section. Nice.
Probably is.
Yeah, Brendan, you asked about what our expectations were. I think I'm at the point in this season that I don't have any expectations anymore. I go into a game and I'll watch it for as long as I can tolerate. Really, it's kind of gotten to that point, and I think I was somewhat intrigued just to see what Beijing could do against a little better defense, although their passing defense is not great, but a little more professional than the Raiders were last week. Obviously, a great defensive line with Bosa and Khalil Mack and others, even some former Bears. Won't get into that, but I mean, I was kind of intrigued to see how he would do, and then I just sort of lost interest. I think the most exciting part of the game, from a Bears fan's perspective, was probably the Chargers social media tweet after the game. That I took a nice dig at us, but I have to admit it was pretty funny. But it's funny, but then it's also really sad, because I sat there and I saw that and I just said, my gosh, they just like absolutely threw shade at the Bears. And I wonder if the Bears ownership knows like that they are what the Lions have been for decades. They are what the Browns had been for decades. They are now the laughing stock in the NFL. They are now the gold standard when it comes to shit organizations. Like that's who they are at this point. And I hate to be that way, but that's just reality, guys. They're awful.
This team doesn't know how to win. Like, truly, they don't know how to win under this regime. And I know I've talked about it a lot. I've tweeted about it a lot. The fact that the Bears just don't have a 2-game winning streak under Matt Eberflus. And on the surface, it's like, yeah, that's ridiculous. How can a coach do that? I mean, every single Bears coach has done that at this point through 25 games in team history. But it goes past like just a dubious stat like that. It tells me that whenever this team actually lucks into any sort of success or any like good things that happen, like after the Commanders game, how everything clicked, the Raiders game as well, they spend I don't know what they do, but it feels like they spend the week just hyping themselves up like, yeah, we are a good football team. We know what we're doing. The process is working. And then they completely forget how to actually play a football game. And they go out the next week and look completely unprepared. I mean, like, it would be one thing if it was at least competitive and at least like, okay, you're trading blows with the Chargers, but you had one good play in the entire first quarter, really, that Darnell Mooney catch. And then after that, you couldn't do anything with it. And then Justin Herbert goes out and doesn't miss a pass almost. Like, you forget how to tackle. You don't have the fundamentals. You're committing too many pre-snap penalties. And it's just like, it takes you losing so much to finally like get yourself back to winning. And you don't know how to handle that. A friend of the show, Mark Grody, made a comment on the post game, and he had said this on Thursday, that the Bears locker room was hyped and they were excited on Thursday. Like he's like, I haven't heard that. He's like, I haven't heard something like that in a long time, like at least not this season. And it's kind of like, what are you having to celebrate? Like that you beat the Raiders and that you have 2 wins on the season? It just tells me that whatever it is, whether it's Eberflus or the players, it's both really, but the entire organization doesn't know how to handle any sort of success. And that is a huge problem a year and a half into a regime like this.
You know, I think that's an excellent point. And Shells, you made the point last week about the umbrella nature that should be the role of a head coach. And that included, you know, your words loosely were, hey, maybe you need to go into the offensive room and talk to Getsy and say, hey, here's what I'm seeing and here's what I want, just to paraphrase you. And I think so similarly in this situation, Brendan, what you just alluded to is also the job of the head coach. And I was joking a minute about, you don't have high highs and low lows. And that is something that I would repeat constantly as a coach, just to say like, and you hear some of the greatest athletes talk about that too, like having just kind of this being, the ship and not the ocean, and staying focused and looking at the ways in which the play-to-play performance then equates to a win, so you don't get out over your skis and start thinking about wins when you've only won how many games in the last year, right? I mean, so like, I think, I've not been overly critical of Flus, but I would put that on the head coach. I mean, if you get that vibe in the locker room, then that says something larger about the message that they're getting from a day-to-day basis.
How many players on this team like know what it's like to win? How many players come from a winning franchise or winning pedigree? I mean, I can think of maybe a handful off the top of my head, and then after that, I'm like, who is there? I mean Edwards, Edmonds. Maybe you throw Patrick in there, coming from the Packers. But I mean, like there are a handful of players that know what it takes to win, that have been on successful teams for any length of time. And you, at some point, you have to infuse young talent with quality veterans who can bring some type of leadership to the locker room and can bring a winning attitude to the locker room. And the Bears haven't done that.
No, I was trying to rack my brain too. And how much of a leader was TJ Edwards too in Philly? I'm not like discounting him or anything like that. It's just that team was loaded with guys like Fletcher Cox and Lane Johnson and Darius Slay on the defensive side. So you go down the list, it's like TJ Edwards, he's kind of like that I'm going to put him in that Danny Trevathan category where he was kind of like one of the lower ends of a championship caliber team, comes to Chicago, and maybe like the culture's better, but the Bears didn't win when they got Danny Trevathan, not until like year 3. It takes a long time to build that winning culture, and it really sets you back if you don't have a coach or a coaching staff that can keep that message the same. I think, Jack, you made a good point, like keep it level. And maybe Eberflus is saying all that to the media and everything, but it's clearly not going forward, I guess, like on the game and when the action comes out. I don't know what I'm trying to say. But yeah, in terms of the actual game, so you said that, Jack, you said that Luke Getsy's game plan was bad, everything like that. I don't know if I hated the game plan. Okay. It just didn't seem, I mean, there seemed like there was some confusion and everything. They were able to drive the ball at times. I love the decision to go for it right out of the gate and hit Darnell Mooney on that 41-yard pass. And to be honest, maybe things look a little bit different if he's actually getting up right away and running. I'm not blaming that on Darnell Mooney because the officials should have seen that. It should not have blown that dead. Maybe this is a more competitive game when you're giving your defense a lead right off the bat instead of just, not getting points in your first drive. I don't know. It just seemed like everything was bad, just bad execution. Maybe, again, I'm not saying the game plan was good. I'm just maybe not like laying the blame at Getsy for the game plan. I don't know. Am I off base there?
I mean, I agree with you fully on taking a shot deep on the first play from scrimmage. That was maybe my favorite part of the freaking game. Like that was awesome. We just don't see that. And why not? Like we've been talking about wanting to see that for years. I've mentioned several times that used to be my first play call. Every single game I ever coached would be a deep shot. Why not? Loosen up the defense, make them think you might go deep, changes the entire tone of the game. So in that respect, absolutely agree. I guess what I feel like though is that there's just not an identity. And it wasn't until we were deep in the hole that it seemed like Luke Getsy decided that he was going to commit to the run. And I suppose, again, trying to like recalibrate in real time, if you see a team go down and score as easy as the Chargers scored once and then twice, then I think your game plan needs to shift to a control the ball, field position type of game. And so you've got to limit your 3 and outs. You got to limit your short possessions. And what that's going to equate to is running the ball, which is something that we have done probably the best of all aspects of our offense last year and this year. We seem to be able to run block. And even, last night at various times, there was some effectiveness on the ground. So to me, it seemed like there was an inability to shift in real time, to be able to start to commit to the run game, to grind up some time, to keep the Chargers offense off the field. And then this is the kind of typical game where you run to set up play action for your young quarterback who's maybe not reading the defense very well. So, I mean, again, there's a lot of blame to go around. There's no doubt about it. But I just feel like as good as Luke Getsy called the game last week, like I said, I just feel like we either get good Luke Getsy or we get, hey, is there a Pee Wee football coach in the stands who might like to come down and call the offense for this game?
Yeah, it also hurts when you put yourself in terrible situations with holding penalties and illegal hands to the face, and then maybe your game plan goes out the window because you're dealing with like 3rd and 15s now, and you're throwing to Cole Kmet for 12 yards and getting like a 4th and 3, unfortunately. Right. Stuff like that really, really takes you out of your element. Speaking of that, though, I do want to get your guys' thoughts on Tyson Bagent. His second start, throws 2 picks, doesn't have the same sort of performance that he had before when he's actually having to try and win the game. And, we're going to talk a little bit. I know in the comments, I think our guy Todd was asking about if we're going to address it. We're going to talk about the commentary and everything. But first, I want to hear you guys' thoughts on just Bagent's performance itself. So, we'll start with Sheldon this time. I'll change it up since Jack and I were talking.
Yeah, I was looking for it. I don't know if I'm going to find it in time. I think Khalil Mack said it best, right? And I'll kind of paraphrase. the kid looks good. He's got some moxie. He's got some confidence. But as Khalil Mack said, he was glad number one wasn't out there, right? Like I know a lot of folks are fired up about Tyson Bagent. They like the idea of, the undrafted free agent coming in, Brock Purdy out of nowhere and just being a stud, being, Mr. Irrelevant and coming in and producing right away. Like that story would have been great. But I think reality sort of set in a little bit this week. And while he does have some positive, does have some qualities, he's a talented kid. You saw the arm limitations. And Jack, I think you'll agree with this, right? There's a difference between being able to drop back and sort of just like air one out kind of arm strength and having the arm strength to like get out, to the numbers, to the outside on a rope so that you don't give the cornerback a chance to jump the route and pick it off. I mean, how many interceptions should he have had last night had things broke the other way? And I think you saw some of the limitations of his arm talent. Now, yeah, he can maybe go back and throw it 40, 45 yards in the air, but my gosh, like what NFL quarterback can't? What NFL quarterback can't make that first throw he made of the game? So I think he's always going to be his ceiling is always going to be limited because of his physical attributes. But there are a lot of things that I did like. I mean, I think he layers the ball nicely. I think he's got great touch and awareness, great touch on his throws, awareness in the pocket. He seems to have an understanding of what he wants to do with the ball when he gets it. And maybe it's just the physical limitations don't necessarily allow him to do those things. But there's a lot to like, and I think he'd be a really solid backup because I think the more experience he gets, the more comfortable and he'll, use a little bit of veteran savvy to make up for some of the lack of physical attributes. I just don't see him as a starting quarterback long-term for the Bears or another NFL team, and who knows what's going to happen with Fields when he's coming back. I don't know if we want to get into that just yet. I got a lot of thoughts on how they've handled the Fields injury and the PR around that. So
we'll get into it. We'll get into it.
I'll leave it at that for now. But I think my main takeaway was I think reality sort of set in for Tyson Bagent.
I feel like, wasn't it you like midweek that said you had a raging Bagent? I thought you were really on board, Shells.
Jack, that was a private conversation you and I had, and it wasn't about Tyson Bagent.
Aired that out to the crowd. Yeah, no, he's fine. He's fine. He got double up in quarterback rating. I think it was 122 to like 62 by Herbert, right? So when you see a professional quarterback of the highest level playing on the same field as your Division II backup, it gives you some perspective. Ultimately, if I make the statement that we all know this, it's not breaking any news here, but an elite quarterback, a franchise quarterback can change the entire trajectory of your franchise. And we're still waiting for it. We are still waiting for it, whether that's, if Fields ever comes into his own or not. But Bagent's not that, right? I mean, he's not. He's fine. He's good. I think he moves the ball fairly well. Like we talked about last week, his pocket presence is good. He's better at not taking sacks. I think you were spot on about his arm strength. When you watch, even someone like Cousins, earlier in the day or some of the other quarterbacks, they just fire frozen ropes, like not like 7 to 8 yard ins or slants, but 15 to 20 yard crossing routes on a level 1, not 2, not 3, level 1 rope. You're like, okay, that's what it looks like. Okay. Right. And so, I mean, I don't think he has that type of, he doesn't have that type of talent. We're just, I mean, guys, we're a team that loses a lot of game with a Division II backup quarterback starting. That's what we are. And it kind of sucks.
Like, he is the perfect backup quarterback. Like, I think if you had said, okay, who knows about what else happens, but hey, Justin Fields is going to get hurt for a couple games. Got this backup. He's going to be one-on-one, and he's going to have a pretty good performance, and he's going to have a not so great performance. You'd probably accept that, right? Like, you'd at least be able to do something to get you a win. It's kind of like Chase Daniel in that way. Chase Daniel did the same thing in 2018. It led the Bears to a win, got him to a loss, but you just kind of want to maintain that 500 level with a backup quarterback when the starter comes back in. He's got some of those intangibles where, yeah, he knows where the ball needs to go. He can't make those throws physically. Shells, I think you mentioned it, like the levels with some of the throws and leveling the throws. That one pass to DJ Moore, that was just over the head of Eric Hendricks, was phenomenal. That was one of the coolest throws I think that he's made. But then he's throwing into double coverage. He doesn't have the arm strength to get it outside enough before the DB closes in. We saw that with the almost interception, I think, with Asante Samuel. And look, when things aren't going well, when you can't rely on a good ground game, and when you're already playing behind or from behind, this is what's going to happen. You have to have the quarterback try and win the game. That's why he threw for 37 times, I think it was, because you were already playing down like 2 scores in the middle of the first quarter. That just can't happen. So it's a good story. The kid can definitely have a staying factor in the league, whether it's with the Bears or with somebody else. And that, I think, is just a huge success for somebody of his ilk. But I mean, we saw it all week. Some of the takes, I call them Tyson takes, both good and bad. People just going from one end of the spectrum saying he is the next Brock Purdy, he should be the starting quarterback for the rest of the year, versus just, people defending Fields for for his life and everything. That was just a bit ridiculous. Like, let's call it what it is. He's a backup quarterback. He can come in and operate the offense efficiently when things are working well. And that's about it. And that's totally okay. Mm-hmm. And so I think this leads us into what was going on in the commentary. And I know Shells especially is really itching to talk about this. For those who don't know, if you weren't watching or just weren't paying attention, Tirico and as Todd Welter, in all seriousness, has the Chris Collinsworth commentary been addressed? We're addressing it now. Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth admittedly had an agenda, because they had said Dyson Bagent is going to be the number one talking point of this broadcast. He's the best story out there. Okay, great. But then some of the things that they were saying about him, and how Justin Fields can learn from Bagent, and how he really could be this, I'm putting words in their mouth, but just like this, starting level quarterback, and essentially kind of crapping on Fields a little bit, and talking about how a Division I championship level player in college, now in his 3rd year, could learn from an undrafted rookie. That was a bit ridiculous. And there's been a lot of takes, a lot of commentary on it. So yeah, I want to hear what you guys think before I give my thoughts, but we'll go Jack and Shells for this one.
Well, I guess what I would like to hear from Shells really is, because I don't think I followed it as closely, but I did watch the Bernstein rant. And what I would like for you to do, if you can, is create like a direct through line. I mean, in other words, are we just piling on Flus because we don't like Flus and he's losing a lot of games and we think he's a bad coach? Or do we think that somehow Flus like put a seed in those guys' ears to say the things that they said on the broadcast about Bagent and about Fields? In other words, here's the deal. I know you've gained some respect for Bernstein. I still haven't. I just haven't. And so I don't see the connection unless you can make a tangible connection for me, Shells.
Yeah. So we know that these guys have production meetings with the staff, right? I mean, like, they do their homework. They don't go into these games, the broadcast team, and make up narratives. What was interesting to me was Collinsworth. What's that?
Sorry, go ahead. I mean, they do sometimes.
Well, but not really. Like this game, you said it. They were going to lead with Bagent. He was the story, and they supported it with quotes from Getsy about how much they love the kid and all that. But in terms of the field stuff, what Collinsworth said was what the Bears are going to want to do. not what he would do, right? He said what the Bears are going to do is have Fields sit down and watch this tape, almost as if he was repeating something that he had heard. If Collinsworth had said, if I were the Bears, what I would do is sit Fields. He didn't say that. The way he presented it was almost as if like, this is the plan, is that the Bears are going to want him to sit down and look at what Bagent does and how he gets the ball out quicker. And I think people are making too much out of this, like that it's some grand conspiracy. It's really not. I mean, it's Matt Eberflus and Luke Getsy trying to save their asses. I mean, let's be honest. Like it's human nature to want to save yourself here. And so, yeah, I absolutely think that in those meetings and when they were meeting with Collinsworth and Tirico, they made comments about, hey, these are the things that we really like about Bagent. Some of the things he does that Fields hasn't done yet. Just plant the seed like, hey, just a reminder, Fields isn't our guy. We weren't here when he was drafted. And it's not our offensive system that sucks. That's getting the criticism, right? We know Justin Fields criticized our offense. We know fans are criticizing our offense. We know we're taking a lot of heat. But we want to make it clear it's not our offensive system that sucks. It's the quarterback who can't run it. And we've heard this argument before from coaches in Chicago. We've heard this before, right? Like this isn't a new tack by coaches trying to save their ass and trying to save their job. Like throw the other regime under the bus. You know, the famous quip about like, you know, the president comes in and there's a letter from the old president in his desk and it says, you know, for the first catastrophe, you know, blame the other guy, right? Or I don't know, I'm going to screw up the thing, but basically it's like you get one chance to blame the other guy. And then like, once that's gone, then sit down and write your note for the next guy and on how to blame the old regime. Right. Because, I just think that they want to they like their system. They love their system. They love the way Bagent runs their system. And they want to try to make it clear as day that it's not them. They don't have their guy. And so give us another year, give us another chance to show what we can do when we have an opportunity to draft our guy, a more talented Bagent. And so I don't think it's wild to think that they put that bug in Collinsworth and Tirico's ear that they're not happy with some of the things that Fields is doing on the field and that they think Bagent executes their offense better. I just don't think Collinsworth and Tirico pulled that out of nowhere.
I guess I would just say that I respect you, Shells, and so time will tell and we'll see if there's any merit to that. But we've talked on this show previously about how ridiculous the national broadcasts are and how they do choose some, I'm sorry, just some stupid effing narrative to just use up ad nauseum that has really nothing to do specifically with the team.
Hey, Jack, did you hear Justin Herbert he's got a flesh wound?
Tis just a flesh wound. Tis just a flesh wound. Like, shut up. So, I mean, the only pushback I would give you, Shells, is that I do think that whole, like, Cam Worrell posted something about how ridiculous the broadcast is and was. Everyone talks about how ridiculous Chris Collinsworth is and always is. And so the problem I have is giving them any freaking credence whatsoever. The whole like 2-man talking head broadcast like platform needs to go away. I mean, I think Manningcast has shown that like this old school bullshit that they do with these national broadcasters is just dead. It's just dumb and it's dead. And so again, like I said, I do respect you and I would like to see how this plays out. And you may be 100% right. But I don't see like the through line and the direct connection. And I give zero credence to those two dudes up in the booth.
But all they had to do was run with the Bagent narrative. They didn't have to bring in Fields and compare him to Fields and talk about how the Bears want to sit Fields down like he's a toddler and show him Tyson Bagent film on how he can improve, right? Like, again, they discuss things in the production meetings, and that's where they come up with their material and the things that they're going to talk about. So, you know, again, unless we think Collinsworth is just going off on his own completely and saying the Bears want to do this, like, where would he get that from? Why would he say the Bears want to do this? What's that?
he just pulls things out of his ass all the time.
Yeah, I don't. It wasn't a one-off to me. It was. I mean, it was a theme throughout the entire broadcast.
Okay.
See, my thing is, I think there is some truth to it. Whereas in like these production meetings, they're talking to the coaches, they're talking to the quarterback, and I'm sure it did come up. Like maybe somebody asked a question, like, "Hey, does Tyson do things that Justin maybe doesn't do as well, or whatever? Can you run certain things with Tyson that you can't run with Justin?" I'm sure Luke probably said, "Yeah, we do some things like this, and Tyson does this well, but then Justin Fields does this well." And then maybe Collinsworth and Tirico sensationalized it, and they took it to that more extreme level, which they didn't need to do. I think it was ridiculous to even just bring up the fact that, Fields is out. He wasn't benched. He wasn't like, he's not playing because he sucked this year. He's had some sucky games, but he was rolling before he got hurt. Like, this is a guy who's just going to do the Collinsworth. Now here's a guy who's just on the bench because he's hurt. Like the only reason Tyson Bagent is playing is because, Fields can't. And I think that, you want to talk about the great, all the Shepherd University stuff, all the, the stupid, which was hilarious in its own right. The graphic that they made of like the 3 quarterbacks for the Chargers and then the dozens of Bears ones. Hey, that was a unique way of showing the graphic that we all knew. So I give him props for that. But you didn't need to bring Fields into it. You could just talk up Bagent for what he does well and what maybe Getsy can run with him and just leave it at that. So I personally think they sensationalized it. I don't think the Bears coaching staff was trying to, just discredit Fields, but with how sort of things may have been presented, that's sort of the narrative that runs with it. So it's tough.
To me, it's the invocation of the third person and everything they said. Even the throwaway. Do you remember the throwaway? And they said that's a play the Bears want Fields to make. Like, he didn't say that's a play. That's something that Fields has to learn to do better, or that's an area I think Fields can improve. He kept invoking the third person, saying that's the Bears want him to do this and the Bears want him to do that. I don't know. Collinsworth is still a professional. Like, I don't think he's going to reference the Bears wanting certain things unless he's heard that from somebody. I just don't think he would completely make it up multiple times throughout the broadcast unless the seed had been planted in his ear. And maybe he was doing it subconsciously, but to say the Bears want Fields to do that more, something that Tyson Bagent did, and the Bears want to sit Fields down and have him watch Tyson Bagent, like, I don't know. It wasn't a first person, here's what I think. It's right. Let me tell you what I've heard.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, if you go to the brass tacks of the situation and you look at Fields over time, he hasn't performed overly well. Now, that could be because of the coaching staff and the broth that he's currently in, but we know he holds on to the ball too long. We know that he's not good at throwing it away. We know that his processing is poor. So, I mean, if we back out for a minute, I mean, are any of the statements that were made incorrect? Or is Bernstein just looking to get some clicks and some notoriety and some listens?
No. Yeah, go ahead, Brendan. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I don't think the statements are incorrect, but it's like, you're not supposed to say the quiet part out loud. There's kind of like that decorum to go through. And I was watching the game too when Tyson Bagent did that spin and threw it away. And I was with my buddy, and he said Fields probably gets sacked in that situation. I'm like, yeah, maybe, or he tries to run for like, a yard or two. So it's one of those things that it is true, but it's like you kind of can't do that at the same time.
Well, and it's not just that though, but for a coaching staff that's completely absolved itself of any blame in how they've developed his pocket presence, to go in and not create an offense for a young quarterback in his second offensive scheme to help get him confident and comfortable in the pocket, to then develop his pocket presence. Like, look at what the Ravens did in year 2 for Lamar Jackson by bringing in, everybody wants Jim Harbaugh to be the next head coach because he brought Greg Roman along with him, and look what he did with Colin Kaepernick. Well, look what he did with Lamar Jackson in year 2, right? Like, I agree. Roman's done great at developing schemes and offenses to fit the skill set that their quarterbacks have, and they flourished because of it. And all I'm saying is, if this staff didn't come into this season with a template and a paradigm for how they wanted their quarterback to be, which is not Justin Fields' skill set. It's not consistent with what he does well out of college, right? But if they had come into this season without that preconceived notion of what their quarterback had to be in this offense and develop something around his skill set to build, and I've talked about this before, Jack, to build his pocket presence concurrent with having him run things he's comfortable with to be successful. I don't understand why it's got to be an either or. Like people are like, he's got to be a pocket passer or he has to be a Michael Vick running quarterback. Why can't we do a little bit of both? Why can't we give him the principles and things that he's comfortable doing to get him confident as a new quarterback in the NFL and make him comfortable and bring the other piece along with that? Like, I feel like any good manager with an employee wouldn't just dump a bunch of shit on their new employee's plate and go, here, you got to learn all this new stuff and it's got to be perfect and you got to do it my way. It's like, let's play to your strengths a little bit, get you confident, get you some lay down a bunt just to get a hit, just to get on, right? Get some confidence. And then we'll bring along the other stuff. Then we'll get you hit in the opposite field. Then there was none of that. It was, no, we got to make Justin Fields, Aaron Rodgers, because that's who runs Luke Getsy's offense the best. And we saw what Fields can do when Getsy caters to his strengths. Like he's had these runs of multiple games where he excels, and then we go away from it. I just don't understand why we don't build the pocket awareness and presence and processing while we're having him do the things that he's good at doing. Like those two things are not mutually exclusive. And this staff didn't do that. And they're absolving themselves of any responsibility. I think that was Bernstein's point. It's like, look at who the hell are you guys to come in here and you got this athletic unicorn and you just refuse to do anything to embrace what he does well and see if you can build him into a starting caliber NFL quarterback. That was my problem. I don't disagree with the comments. I agree. Fields needs to do a lot of things better, but let's not act like this staff has made it easy for him or has put him in a position to succeed and do those things well or improve on those things.
It's fascinating if that's true, right? Because we get a former regime where the guy wants to run the Kansas City Chiefs offense with, not the Kansas City Chiefs personnel, square peg, round hole. And if you're correct, a new regime, who has like a previous conception of what it is they think the offense should look like, separate of what their actual clientele is. And if that's the case, then, I mean, no surprise, we're on a second regime of just not very good coaches.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, it goes back to what I said a long time ago and repeatedly. Like, the previous regime had a belief or had a plan. They couldn't execute it, but they had a plan for Fields. And I'm not saying, like, obviously he's not Patrick Mahomes, but he's got those tendencies where Mahomes can kind of like make something out of nothing. He's not that just pure drop back passer. And there's a lot of different things with that offense. I thought Fields on paper, it made sense for the Nagy offense. Now you bring in guys who coached up Rodgers and Kirk Cousins and just put him in that box to try to make him like that. And it just doesn't work. The management, the organization itself just hired guys who are trying to make Fields who's something he's not and not cater to those strengths that he's had. We've talked about it ad nauseum. I mean, we know what it is. This coaching staff and Fields just do not work. And one or both is going to be gone. And the other, maybe there's going to be success for one or both of them, but it's not going to be here together.
Yeah. I mean, Olin had a great segment on 670. I recommend people go check it out. I mean, it was spot on. Like, if they're not going to create an offense around this guy, if he doesn't fit what they want to do, then just get rid of him. Let him go flourish elsewhere.
Exactly. All right. I don't mean to interrupt. We do have to get to a couple more segments real quickly. Going to bring it back to the game a little bit because we still have to do the outhouse and the penthouse.
The outhouse and the penthouse.
Oh, that's right. I turned the music down when we were doing our Sheridan screen.
That's all right.
That's okay. But the outhouse and the penthouse is brought to you by our friend Jeff Cadwallader. He has been working hard since the beginning of the year to expand his real estate services to now include commercial properties. And the dude's been killing it. Doesn't matter if you're a business owner, a homeowner, or an investor. There you go, Jack. If you're looking to buy, sell, or lease commercial or residential properties, Jeff is your guy. So make sure you call or text Jeff Cadwallader with SVN Landmark today at 630-254-4734 or visit genevajeff.com. It's beginning to become the end of the year. Maybe you're thinking about a new house at the new year. So give Jeff a call. Like I said, that's just 630-254-4734 or visit genevajeff.com.
Jack,
Ryan's going to hate this music.
What did you put in the Google search bar to find that? What? I would delete your browsing history like immediately.
I'm glad you love it.
That was.
I just feel like
either.
you know what? We just let's spice it up, right? You know, it's fun. I don't know what you're like.
He's gonna listen back to this. He's like, "What are you guys doing?"
Your mind is always in the gutter. Always. I just thought some like peppy, upbeat music in the background of some reads would be fun, and here you are again, dragging us down.
I'm just filth. If you wouldn't mind sharing those search terms with me offline, I'm curious to know what you typed into your computer to get that music.
Oh my God. All right. All right. Outhouse, penthouse. Let's go. Sheldon, Jack, and I'll wrap it up.
Outhouse. Good thing Dangle's not here because I'm gonna destroy his guy, and I know this is gonna rip his heart out. But Velus Jones, I've had enough. I've had enough. There's nothing he does well. Like, this game was a microcosm of all the things he does poorly. I haven't seen one thing he does well that Tyler Scott can't do for this team, or any schlub off the street can't do, right? Like, awful penalty on special teams. Can't even stay on his feet to catch a sure touchdown. You know, you talk about that first play, Brendan, and could things have been different? You know, you get that play, and then you hit Mooney wide open for a touchdown. Maybe things are a little bit different, or hit Velus Jones for a wide open touchdown. Maybe things are different. But the guy can't even stay on his feet. And then he has another chance to catch it, and it bounces off his chest. He can't return punts. He can't be a gunner on special teams. He can't catch the ball. He can't stay on his feet. We're keeping him on the team to do end arounds and return kickoffs. Like, that's, I don't know.
The one kickoff he returned.
Sick of the
got
kid.
to the 20.
Got to the 20. Yeah. It's more of an indictment on Ryan Poles at this point. Like, I defended the pick in the beginning, hoping that he saw something that maybe others didn't. And I was willing to give him some grace on that, being a first-time GM. But, oh, my God, it'll go down as the worst pick of his regime, I think.
So I just keep looking for his name on the box score, and it's not there. Yannick Ngakoue has no stats. So I don't know. I mean, I know he was in my outhouse last week, and I think he was actually in the stat line last week. So maybe I should have given him proper credit, because he's just not anywhere in the stats this week. So I don't know. Like, we may run out of time about talking about trades or not, but I don't know what good that guy's doing you at this point. Like, if you can't even make an impact, and no pass deflection, no quarterback pressure, no sack, and no freaking tackles, are you kidding me? I mean, come on, man. Like, yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
$10.5 million. 10.5
Good work
million.
if you can get it.
Oh, God. I could do that for 10.5 million. I cannot request 10.
You could.
I'll do it for 1 million.
And look good doing it.
Okay, mine's gonna be Matt Eberflus, but it's gonna be specifically the hits principle. The hits principle was nowhere to be seen yesterday. Hustle. Darnell Mooney didn't really hustle out of that first play. Might have been different. Guys just missing tackles, looking lackadaisical at times. Intensity, there was no intensity on that goddamn sideline or anything. Guys just looked, just disinterested to be there. The ball, try catching it. Try catching the ball. Going after the ball maybe might help. And then smart. The stat I found today that really just pissed me off was the amount of pre-snap penalties the Bears have had this season. And I could be wrong in my counting, and we'll see when the official number comes out. But by my count, the Bears have committed 25 pre-snap penalties this year. There were 4 yesterday, 2 false starts, 2 offsides. They had 28 all season last year, and we're only in week 8. Like, that is just so undisciplined. Look, holding penalties happen, okay? Defensive pass interference, stuff like that happens when the ball's in play, okay? It shouldn't happen, but it does. When you can't even figure out like false starts or whether you're offsides or not twice in a game, what are you doing?
The worst was when they came out to clearly try to draw the Chargers offsides, and we had 2 guys jump at the end of the quarter. We're saved. Another, yeah.
It should have been another penalty. Yeah.
Should have been another one.
Like, how do you do that? The ball's not even snapped yet. You're supposed to look at the goddamn ball and then watch what the other team does. It's so unacceptable. And for a coach that prides himself on all that bullshit, like, you can't have that. And especially after last year, they were one of the least penalized teams last year. And it's definitely up a lot more this year. So that was disgusting. I hate it.
I don't know how you go from first to worst in the course of a season when it comes to penalty, or like not worst, but close to freaking close.
So if for total penalties, I think what I looked at, I'm not looking at it now. I think they're like 12th or 13th. They're kind of middle of the pack. For pre-snap penalties, they're tied for second. So that tells you what that's about. Yeah. All right. Penthouse. Who are the stars of this game, if there were any? It's same order.
The stars. I don't know if there were any stars on the Bears side, but I'll give my Penthouse to Darnell Wright, who again played really well on the offensive line. I said Velus Jones is by far Poles' worst draft pick, and I think Darnell Wright's by far his best draft pick. I mean, what this guy has done with a lackluster supporting cast on the offensive line, playing with rotating players next to him, coming in, counting on lining up next to Nate Davis, a veteran, didn't get any preseason time with him, has gotten very few, regular season snaps. The guy's held his own against some really quality top end pass rushers, and recently has done so without the benefit of one of his arms. I mean, he's been outstanding this season. Like the one of the very few positives we can take from this year is that we've got ourselves at least one tackle.
Can we talk about just the touchdown run?
We did it. Hang the banner. We've got a tackle.
But Jalen Carter.
I mean, our pass rush does still suck, but no, can we talk about the touchdown run though, where Darnell Wright pulls and he just looks like the mountain from Game of Thrones, like ready to kill someone? Yeah. I've watched that run so many times. It just gives me so much joy. It was awesome.
He's awesome.
Some people, I think, will question this, but I mean, right now, TJ Edwards, who led the team in tackles with 13, 9 of them scored and 2 quarterback hits. I think I saw today that he is second in the league in tackles. That's pretty cool. I mean, I realize a lot of them are downfield. I just think that it's about the broth that you're playing in. We know he's a good linebacker. We saw him play in Philly, a professional organization at the highest level. And so, as we've talked about previously with perhaps a reconfigured defensive line, you got yourself a linebacker right there who finds the football. And as I like to say, rather frequently, that dog can hunt. So yeah, in my Penthouse is locally grown TJ Edwards. Not TJ Brooks.
Yeah, not TJ. Although TJ Brooks deserves to be in there too.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
We'll put them both in there.
My only gripe with TJ Edwards was the missed tackle on Austin Eckler.
Yep. That was brutal.
Kind of a big play. I mean,
it was brutal. That was a tough one, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Dangle's not here, so I'm gonna give his favorite guy some love and Jack's favorite guy some love, and kind of my guy because I love him. Cole Kmet.
Let's go.
Cole Kmet, 10 targets, 10 catches, 79 yards. He had a pretty look for a backup quarterback. A tight end is your best friend. I'm so glad that they actually got Cole Kmet involved in the offense. maybe some of those targets should have gone to DJ Moore. I don't know. But at least Kmet made the most out of every single one of them. He should have had a touchdown too. That blown call when he was like supposedly stopped, that was bullshit. He should have kept going. He should have had a score. So yeah, Cole Kmet showed out. He was pretty much the only pass catcher to do so on Sunday night. All right, I know we're at an hour already. I do want to get to some trades real quickly. Anything else that you guys saw that we haven't talked about from the game?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, I do think it's really super odd at the preemptive whistles that the Bears have received in the last, 3 to 4 games. I mean, how about just don't? How about it seems like in other games specifically, they are letting the play out and then making a decision afterwards, which is the right choice to make. And that Mooney blown call was a bad freaking call. The Kmet one, maybe you could gripe about that and have a discussion. But nonetheless, I guess good teams get breaks. I don't know. So don't complain about the officials. Meh.
Yeah, for me, you kind of mentioned it, Brendan, but it was going to be the lack of targets for DJ Moore. It's not just a Justin Fields thing, right? Like I know some people want to say, why isn't Fields seeing DJ Moore? There is not a concerted effort sometimes for long periods of time to get him the ball. Like I don't understand it. I really don't. It makes absolutely no sense.
The biggest thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to highlight YGK, the mismanagement of timeouts. Bears didn't call a timeout yesterday. That was really weird. Really? And then the fact that Eberflus, this was the dumbest thing ever. Tyson Bagent's at the goal line, and they think they potentially scored when they're down 23 points, mind you, late in the fourth quarter. And Eberflus tries throwing a flag to challenge it. Then he's late on the challenge. I'm like, first, why are you challenging a play when you're down 23? Like, I know you want your guy to get something here, I guess, to maybe feel a little bit good about himself, but holy crap, just leave it. And then the fact that you're also late, like
that was so embarrassing.
So dumb. Yeah, so embarrassing. Embarrassing is the right word. So yeah, those are pretty much it. And the fact, like I said earlier, the Bears just can't win on Sunday Night Football. So it's really sad.
They're gonna flex them right out of that Monday night game, aren't they? I think it's Carolina and the Bears, and I think they can flex Monday night games.
So Thursday. Well, Thursday's Carolina.
Okay, so
I think this guy was playing the last time the Bears won on Sunday Night Football.
Okay. At home, they're holding.
If anybody in the comments can guess who this is, unlike my wonderful co-hosts, you'll get a shout out at the end of the show. And
this is before my time. This is before my time.
Anybody? Can anybody? We'll see. Yeah, I thought Jack would get it for sure.
Yeah, I think I was like too busy, like just manscaping and just trying to continue to be man pretty. It's kind of my full-time job.
Clearly. Because you are pretty.
Thanks.
All right. Look, the trade deadline is tomorrow. There's been some things coming out of Hallis Hall today. Well, first of all, Justin Fields, he's not going to play on Sunday. It's going to be Tyson Bagent yet again. Kind of surprised Eberflus ruled him out already. That just, for somebody who tries to be super sneaky and, competitive advantage, that was a little interesting that he just completely ruled him out on Monday. Guys being hurt, like Jaquan Brisker entered concussion protocol. There's rumors surrounding Jalen Johnson at the trade deadline. So, I want to know from you guys, like this time tomorrow night, what's going to happen? Is anything going to happen with the Bears in the trade deadline? What do you think? Let's go Jack and Shells, and I'll wrap it up.
I guess my gut instinct, just knowing Pole's MO so far, is that there will be a move. I already mentioned that I think, obviously the defensive end seems to be superfluous right now. I don't know why. Like, you're not going to sign him again. I don't know what their options are on him. And I would think that a contending team, well, gosh, why would they take him? I don't know. I'm thinking out loud here, but if the goal is to try to sell high, then maybe Jalen Johnson is the better choice to try to sell high to get some actual equity for this team going forward. But like I said last week, I would really like to see them re-sign Jalen Johnson. I think it's hard to find good corners As an aside, even though Tyreek Stevenson has struggled, he was second in the team in tackling this past week. And I do see some great things in the future for our young defensive backs. They're like, it's trial by fire for them, but I do think that they're going to continue to get better and be an asset for this team. Other than those two, I don't know. Shells, what do you think?
If Poles can somehow flip Eddie Jackson and Yannick Ngakoue for some picks this trade deadline, I will take back a lot of bad things I've said about him.
Great point.
If he trades Jalen Johnson, I think I'm going to be out on him completely. Like it's just you got to get to the point where you're keeping players. You can't continue to create holes that you then have to turn around and fill in free agency in the draft. And frankly, Ryan Poles hasn't shown that he is very good in free agency yet. He's, I think, in my opinion, better in the draft. I'd rather him continue to build through the draft. I know Jalen Johnson wasn't his guy, but you got to start keeping players and building a nucleus that, otherwise you're just perpetually in a rebuild. So I think you need to focus on the guys that are unlikely to be here next year and get something for them if you can, and start signing your homegrown talent.
I love the Eddie Jackson. I think that would be a fantastic move.
I would love it.
Time is spent. Shelf life is over with him.
What was he doing? What? In case of an emergency,
that was weird.
What's going on?
I know he's hurt, but like if he's hurt, then sit him. Like don't dress him. This has happened a couple times with
fire extinguisher. What are we doing? Like in case of an emergency, we'll dress him. What are we doing? This organization is effed from top to bottom. They are so disjointed, and no one is pulling on the same end of the rope in this place.
Look,
Kevin Warren's expression at the end of the game said it all. I mean, like, did everybody catch the tweet from Marcus D? Like, I mean, buddy, you've been on the job for 9 months. We've been dealing with this shit for decades. Like, if you think you're frustrated, you have no idea how pissed off we are.
Yeah. It's almost like he's just like that SpongeBob clip, like just exhaling, like, I've got so much effing work to do now.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Well, now I got to deal with this stadium BS. Now the team sucks too. Like,
yeah.
What did I sign up for? Like, what in the actual F did I get hired to do here?
Kind of seems like it. Exactly. Look, I don't think Eddie Jackson's going to get traded, unfortunately. Too many injury issues. Nobody's going to give anything for him. I would be shocked if Jalen Johnson is moved. He's the best cover corner they have. Like you said, you have to retain good players. And I think it sends a message to the locker room too, negatively, like, hey, it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter what you think you are. Like, we can ship you out. And just all of those veteran guys, it tore the defense up last year. And somebody brought it up to Matt Eberflus in his press conference earlier today. I don't think they do that again, because it just, that's a desperation move. And who knows if Ryan Poles even has the go-ahead from Kevin Warren to make those changes. Like, hey, this is you can't make any big additions or any big subtractions right now. Like, we're going to see this through and evaluate at the end of the year. That being said, I think Yannick is a name to monitor. I think Justin Jones is a name to monitor. He's on an expiring deal, and he's had some moments over the last few weeks. He's a decent 3 technique, good locker room guy for the most part, it seems like. He could be an asset for somebody, maybe flip like a 4th or 5th. And he's still relatively young too. And then on the offensive side, I mean, with Khalil Herbert still hurt, I don't think Deontay Foreman gets moved. I think the Fields trade rumors were ridiculous before, and they're even more ridiculous now, especially with him being hurt. Quarterbacks don't get moved at the deadline. So my 2 names to monitor are Ngakoue and Justin Jones.
You guys are smart. Yeah, the Jackson and Ngakoue, that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure.
What time's the deadline tomorrow?
I think it's either 3 p. It's I think 4 p.m. Eastern time, so 3 p.m.
Eastern.
Is it?
Yeah. Okay. Afternoon. I don't know. I should know. All right, guys. Anything else before we get to shout outs? Anything, maybe that came up in the press conference today or news? Because this is rare that we're doing a podcast a day after a game. So a lot more stuff has come out since then.
No more Nuggets for me.
I hate this team.
You're not laughing. You're
I wish you would like try to be a little more reserved about your opinions, Patrick. I mean, sometimes it's hard to tell. In fact, I can't tell where you stand on certain issues, so it makes it tough sometimes.
Hey,
By the way,
the
there's some great
Bulls won tonight.
sarcasm from my son. He can't freaking stand Eddie Jackson.
Oh boy. Hey, the Bulls won today, so that's cool.
Let's go.
Yeah. All right, let's get to shout outs then. So shout outs will go Jack, Shells, and I'll wrap it up.
Okay, so the Sycamore High School Spartans dominated once again on Friday night in the first round of the playoffs. I want to say that makes them 12-0 in the first round of the playoffs in recent history. They beat Evergreen Park 42-13.
Jeez.
And they will play, they will play Morgan Park on Saturday in the afternoon in round 2. So shout out to the Psycho Spartans and to my son Connor, who got a decent amount of time in the third and fourth quarters and made, boy, I should have looked at the stat line. I want to say he made like 8 or 9 tackles, which was great. So shout out to them. I mean, I'm going to steal it. We may all do it, but shout out to Heidi once again. I'm so glad that you're safe. And actually, just to take it back to something a little bit more joyful. I mean, awesome that you got to see such a phenomenal win, right? I mean, before she left, that was really cool. They won for her, and for her to make the trip up here, all the way from Mexico, and then to play such a great game was really cool. And I'm glad for her that I think she got to meet a lot of great people from what I could ascertain. And then, so this life is topsy-turvy without a doubt, but she's strong. And as we've said a lot of times, we're just so thankful for her and her support of our show. So shout out to Heidi.
Yeah, that was one of mine. So I'll quickly shout out Heidi as well. I think we're probably all in the same boat here. I also want to shout out Ryan Dingle again for doing something that he's so passionate about. I just admire his tenacity and the way he fights for a player when he really believes in one. And so Ryan, I do not want you to leave House Hall tonight until you ensure Velus Jones gets a second contract, my friend. You can do it. I believe in you. I know this is near and dear to your heart. So best of luck, my friend. Sorry you're not here tonight. We certainly miss you. Can't wait to get you back next week. And then my last shout out will go to Alexis Jade. She is at Miss Alexis Jade. Been following each other for a little bit on Twitter, and she's been posting some videos recently, and she's had some really reasonable takes on the Bears quarterback situation, which has been absent from Bears Twitter for a while. And she's had some other pretty reasonable takes on there. So really like her content and the stuff that she tweets out, or is posts. What do we say now? X is out. Yeah. Anyway, I'm still gonna call it Twitter and tweets.
Whatever she excretes. Is that? Sorry, no. I apologize.
I don't. Yeah. Elon will change the name here soon to something awful and lose another $1 billion. But shout out to her. So go give her a follow. And I think that does it for me on the shout out front.
All right. Same thing. Shout out to Heidi, of course. There is a GoFundMe that our friends at the Barroom Network put together. So we'll make sure we link out to that. I know we did earlier in, I guess, last week. But, if anybody's willing and able, again, just complete destruction and disaster in Acapulco. I had to say that right. I kept screwing my P's and C's together. But anyway, just so thankful that Heidi and her family are safe, because she truly is the best. Quick shout out to Ryan Sykes. He is somebody who wrote with Bears Wire in the past, and he's come back now in the last week or so. He's a phenomenal writer. He's a really funny guy. So make sure you check out his work at Bears Wire. It's awesome to see him back. And then shout out to my my good friend Anthony Woods. Him and I go back about 20 years or so. Back like in middle school and high school, we got together over the weekend for the first time in like a year, I feel like. So it was good to catch up with him. He had some introduce some fun takes on the podcast, just names for different segments, like, you know, silly things that would probably piss off Ryan, so I won't share them. But just it was really really good to see him. So shout out to him, and yeah, it was all fun. So for everybody who's listening, everybody who's watching, we want to always thank you so much, especially on a Monday. We know it's a different day and there's a lot going on, but we're thankful that you chose to spend it with us, talking Bears and listening to us commiserate about our favorite team. So make sure you follow us on social, give us a like, subscribe. Please subscribe on YouTube. It definitely helps grow. Continue listening on audio as well. Just any way you interact with us, we're very appreciative of it. But got a lot of play. For Jack Wright, Patrick Sheldon, Logan Bradley, Ryan Dangle, my name is Brendan Shagrew. Thank you so much. And as always, bear down, Chicago.